Meanwhile, if you are playing sports, this is the time of year you really want to be on the lookout. It's when high school students experience the most sports injuries. Medical professionals are warning parents and coaches to be on the lookout for them. And WGEM's Missouri Capitol reporter Hannah Falcon spoke with a doctor about the most common types of injuries.
Friday Night Lights and many other popular sporting events are back in Missouri. But with the return of fall sports comes the return of sports injuries.
The level of intensity and the frequency with which they do certain activities greatly increases, and so we see a corresponding increase in injuries.
Dr. Clayton Nuelle says the most serious are head injuries.
If an athlete or a player has any sort of alteration in consciousness, that's a first obvious sign of a potential head injury. More subtle signs are if they have headaches or if they have difficulty in vision or difficulty with balance.
Many people assume football is the most dangerous school sport, and for a good reason, but girls soccer and cheerleading are actually really close seconds.
Cheerleading, with all of the lifts and gymnastics, there's a greater risk for head injuries. Girls soccer also has issue, and some of those issues are going to be with headers, but most often it's going to be kind of a head-to-head or head-to-other area impact.
The Missouri State High School Sports Activity Association, or MSHA, has to release an annual report on head injuries. According to the most recent report, football is by far the most popular sport for Missouri students. There were more than 1,000 head injuries among Missouri high school football players in 2022. Cheerleading and girls soccer both had more than 250 head injuries statewide the same year. There is always a risk of injury when playing a sport, but Dr. Jennifer Ruxted with MSHA says that risk is worth it for the kids, for the physical and social skills they gain.
All of that is to allow students to feel part of a team and they're all working toward a common goal. That's important for life.
Under a Missouri law called Interscholastic Youth Sports Brain Injury Prevention Act, schools must have parents sign a slip saying they understand the risk of brain injury before their student can participate in school sports. And while EMTs are not required at games, MSHA recommends schools have a medical professional on hand for sporting competitions. Reporting in Jefferson City, I'm Hannah Falcon, WGEM News.